Hello everyone, I hope you're doing good. Today we shall be discussing small talks. Let us start with knowing small talk better as to what is it, who makes it, why at all make a small talk, and where to make it. What exactly is a small talk? It is a pleasant conversation about interests that are common to people or about the topics that are not very important. Why do I say that the topics that are not important? Because the topics that are important to you, it will be for example the topics like your family, anything that you have recently faced, any challenge, all these topics, these are important to you, but you should never be using such topics while we are doing a small talk. Therefore it is said that small talk is, it is a kind of conversation that you are making with people whom you do not know at all, or you know them very less, like they're very far off acquaintances, or with people who are friends of friends. For with such kind of people you can make a small talk. Now what is a small talk? It not necessarily is a cheap talk. We would not be going with the Hindi translation of the word small talk, that is choti baat. This is not choti baat as in the cheap talk. It would be that the time during which, or the time that you're taking to finish one topic and switch to another, that time is small. You don't discuss things in lengths, you do not discuss things in detail, because you're changing topics from one to another frequently, and you're not devoting much of time on a certain topic only while you're talking to people whom you do not know, or whom you're very less acquainted with such people you make small talks. And small talks will be, small will be the duration of time that you involve yourself in talk with somebody on a certain topic. It does not mean that you're talking to that somebody for a small time. No, it means that the topic that you're choosing to talk or discuss about, that particular topic is only very short lived. That topic is only discussed for a small time, and then you switch to another topic. You don't stretch beyond a certain time that particular topic. So what is it? It is a pleasant conversation between people who either do not know each other at all, or they know each other but not to that level. So this is how we'll sum up what small talk is. Now why do we need a small talk? Why do we need to small talk? This is something very important to understand. Whenever you are traveling, maybe at your office space, you're going for your work, you're commuting through a public transport, you're maybe through a bus, a metro, or any other commutation, means of commutation. There you find people whom you do not know, but you can't just be quiet and go ahead in the journey. It is always good to break that ice between the two of you, between or among the people whom you're with. Or maybe you would have experienced this with your parents, or with your siblings, and with yourselves as well at times, that suppose you're waiting for your turn in a doctor's clinic, and you then strike a conversation. So this conversation with people whom you do not know is what is small talk. So where to make it? It is doctor's waiting room. You've gone to buy grocery, and there's a long queue for getting the things billed. Again you start talking. You're going for your office, maybe in the same building, from one floor to another floor, you're taking elevators. Again you meet people whom you of course know, because they're all your office mates, but then maybe you're not in that kind of talking terms with them. It is just a hello hi thing. So with them you can always small talk. In the dining rooms you can, in the restrooms you find people, you can small talk with them. In the social events and gatherings and seminars and conferences, wherein you have people whom you know very less, or whom you do not know at all, and you want to make a relation, in that case you start having a small talk with them. So this is a know-how of a small talk, as to what is it, who makes it, why at all make a small talk, and of course where to make it. Now when you are in a certain setup wherein you do not know people who are very well acquainted with you, it is important that you small talk, or the people small talk, because it becomes very awkward when there's a weird silence in the room. You know people, maybe far off acquaintances, you know them, all of us you're talking, and all of a sudden there's a lull, there's a gap, uh, which is really weird and awkward. Now, to break that awkward silence that has crept in between, we need to master the art of small talking. It is very important to know that what should be the topics that you should touch upon while you're making a small talk with people, and what are the topics that are to be strictly avoided. Now, the safe topics, the topics that you can use to involve yourself in a small talk with people, or any person for that matter, are like weather. Oh, it's a good weather, it's a nice weather outside, pleasant weather. Maybe if you're talking over the phone with somebody, uh, just to fill in that particular awkward silence, you can always say, oh, the weather here is very nice, and how's the weather there now that you'll be coming, uh, most of you, or few of you, you'll be coming out from your homes, and you'll be residing here in the hostels. So there, when it becomes a daily affair to call your parents with a few people, of course, not everybody. So with those few people, yes, there will be people who have a lot of things to tell or share with their parents or siblings, but then there are people who are just making calls so that the parents or the siblings know that they're okay. Now, the first question will be, okay, how are you? There'll be an answer, and there'll be a question from their side, and you'll be answering, and then what, talk about what? So maybe you'll start the conversation as, the weather here is good. Every third day it's raining, and it's not very hot, and or maybe it's not very cold. We have ample of sunshine during the day. So these are the kind of safe topics wherein you're not what is a safe topic? A topic that you're choosing which will not offend anybody in any of the means and ways. So weather happens to be one of the very safe topics which you can discuss about, and nobody will feel bad about it, that as to why are you know touching on that topic. And the current events, of course, can be taken into small talk, but the topics that are the events that are not controversial, only the subtle kind of topics wherein, because see, we've already discussed that it is a pleasant conversation, and to let it be pleasant throughout, you need to choose topics that are subtle, you need to choose topics that are not controversial, you need to choose topics that are of common interests. This finding common interest is really important. So you can always discuss hobbies, you can always say that, oh, I like this, how about you, what about you, what do you like? Okay, you like soccer, you discuss something about the soccer. Do not uh, pass any remark on any of the players, because it could be that the player that you do not like may be that somebody's favorite. So you don't have to put in any remark on the players. Of course, you can discuss players and celebrities, but only to a certain restricted level. You can't just go on being biased towards few and completely ruthless for the other few. So here, the safe, because we're discussing safe topics, so you can discuss celebrities, you can discuss entertainment industry, you can discuss sports, you can discuss anything and everything that you feel is of common interest. Common interest here would be that you have your interest in, and maybe the other party also has the interest in the same. You're allowed to give good compliments, good remarks on the hair and the attire of the person, but do not stretch it beyond a certain a line or two. It has to be restricted to only a small time. That is why it is called as a small talk. And then there are certain topics that are to be avoided. By all means, they have to be avoided. You need to refrain yourself while you're involving yourself in a small talk. You need to refrain yourself from these topics, the controversial topics that like religion, politics. These are certain topics that may be highly offensive to the other party. Suppose you start criticizing one religion, and maybe, because maybe you do not know the person well, you only know the name of the person, but you do not know that maybe one of the parent of that person happens to be from the same religion, which you thought that, okay, because knowing the name, you know that, okay, this is the religion that the person is from. But you do not know as to maybe any of the parent, either mother or father, is from that religion that you're criticizing. So religion should not be touched. Politics, of course, happens to be another topic that should not be talked about much, because the leaders that are your favorite may be somebody else's, in the somebody else's hate list, or maybe the political party that you like maybe is not liked by the other party. So these are the topics that are to be avoided, because the moment you involve yourself in such topics while you're making a small talk, you definitely will land up into an argument, and you don't want to do that. Of course, personal information should not be sought unless you know each other. You should not be asking. For example, suppose you ask somebody, "Oh, how are you married?" Maybe the person has recently lost the spouse, or maybe do you have children? Maybe the people are struggling to have children, or maybe they have children but they don't live with them. Maybe they have children who have any kind of disability, so they would not be feeling very comfortable to talk on those topics. The ultimate goal here while you're making a small talk is to make the other party comfortable with what you're discussing. The moment you're touching on the personal things, personal information related to family, related to salary, these certain topics may be bit embarrassing for the other party to discuss. You can't discuss the jobs also in detail. Maybe the person is a person who's doing a job that is fetching him a less amount, and if you start discussing with the person the job, maybe he's not very comfortable because he realizes that you, on the other hand, are a person who's earning a handsome amount. So there, these are the certain topics that you should not be touching on. And of course, passing any remarks on the body, maybe good or bad, is to be avoided. If at all you meet somebody and you say, "Oh, you look good," maybe in public the person would not like to have such a comment. Maybe the person has a certain kind of aura built, that that he or she doesn't entertain such kind of casual talks. Maybe the person standing with the junior, and you there, you maybe you know the person well, and you come, "Oh, you look good today, you're getting fitter." So maybe in front of those people the person standing with, he or she is not very comfortable listening to that positive compliment also. So remarks of any kind, good or bad, on the person's body are to be avoided. Having discussed what is it, when to make it, where to make it, with whom do you make a small talk, what are the topics that you should be discussing and you should not be touching on, now let us discuss as to when do people make small talk. It is important to understand that this when aspect of it. Most of the times when you are traveling, or maybe when you're at a certain place, you're waiting for somebody, you're meeting somebody for the first time, it so happens that we do not have much of things to talk about. There, this small talk thing is very handy, especially the weather. It keeps the things rolling. So most of the times when you're meeting somebody for the first time, or you've met people but then you're not very well acquainted with those people, and you have some time to spend with them, in that case you can involve yourself in small talks. Then if you're in a room, maybe it could be a social gathering, social event, it could be eh, any kind of a family function, it could be a seminar or a conference, a meeting. During such times, whenever there is a break, you can always involve yourself in a small talk, because these are the times when the room will be filled with awkward silence, and it is a good idea to break that silence. So whenever the room wherein you are is less noisy, you may involve yourself in a small talk. Also, while it doesn't mean that, having said that, small talk is something good that you should master, uh, of course both in personal and professional worlds. But then having said that, I do not mean that while two people are discussing on a very important topic, you don't have to all of a sudden jump into the discussion, say, "Oh, do you like the weather outside?" No, it is not to be done, because as we've discussed in the opening slide, that small talk is talking on topics that are not very important. And if there are people who are already talking on something that is very important and critical, you must not jump into that discussion of theirs and start involving or making a small talk. So do not interrupt people when they are discussing on something good, something important, significant. Only when they stop discussing that, and there's an awkward silence, or maybe people want to interact but they don't find any, they're not able to find any good topics to discuss on. In that case, you can always start with a small talk. And another time that you can make a small talk is, of course, when uh, you're traveling and maybe you're not a very tech savvy kind of a person, or maybe you're waiting outside a doctor's clinic for in the lounge area, you're traveling. For such when with such when such be a case, you can involve yourself in a small talk. So these are the times when you can make a small talk. How do we start a small talk is something that is important. You can, of course, we've discussed that we can talk about weather, we can talk about the common interests, about current events, about anything that is a common interest between the parties or among the parties. So here, how do you start it? For example, if you're talking about weather, oh, it's a beautiful day, don't you feel that? And you will definitely get an answer. It has been, and maybe it is raining uh, since a lot of time now, so you can always say, I'm bored of this rain, I hope that it stops, and maybe we get to see some sunshine, and you will definitely get an answer. So likewise, you can always start talking about the weather. You can also talk about current events. Maybe, okay, did you see the match between India and Australia, that the India and especially the final one wherein the Indian team won? And maybe if cricket is of that particular person's interest, you will strike a good conversation there. Any current topics, you can always discuss the current topics, the current news, or if at all the person is keen reader, maybe when it comes to novels, magazines, newspaper, any kind of media, electronic or printed. These can be the topics from where you can pick the current events. You're out on a walk, and maybe you find people, you maybe you're going with a sibling, with a very young sibling of yours, and you go to a park. The sibling of yours is playing and you're all bored, so maybe there is another person who's come with the sibling or with the child, and you strike a conversation there. Okay, how old is your so, baby, or how old is your brother or sister or whatever. Uh, and then you can always, whenever you're waiting, you can always start the talk like, uh, I did not know that it'll take such a long time. Or mm, uh, maybe if you're waiting in a bus stop or for a metro train or something, and it is not as per the timings, then you can always start with that. Do not criticize that, okay, the bus services here in India or especially at this place are pathetic. Don't say anything like that. But then a general kind of um, a talk wherein you would say that I did not realize that it'll take so long, otherwise I would have fetched a some other means of commutation, or maybe I would have taken my own vehicle. Likewise, so these are certain ways you can start your small talks with. Again, reiterating on the common topics to make small talk. Of course, they can be sports, current matches, favorite teams, players. Do not criticize anybody and do not go overboard when you're talking about your favorite players. Just keep it restricted to a few lines and then you switch to some other thing, keeping in mind that it is a small talk that you're involving in. And then hobbies can of course be discussed. What is your hobby? Mine is this, or any other. How do you pass your time when you're free? Weather, of course, is something that will always be handy. It will always be uh, your tool to break the ice. Media, of course, can be discussed. Media could be any electronic, print, uh, any media. You can talk of social media, you can talk of films, you can talk of books, you can talk of magazines, you can talk of comics as well. You can talk of academics, academic books, anything. Media here means the medium through which you're gaining some information. So it could be any, right? And then of course you can talk about the hometown. Okay, which place are you from? I'm from this place. And you can always discuss that, okay, this what is the weather there? And okay, my at my place, wherever from wherever I am, the weather is usually moderate. We do not have any extreme kind of a weather. And the other party would say, oh, I'm from maybe Kashmir, and it's a beautiful place and you must visit. Likewise, you can, keep building and making that small talk happen. And then you can always discuss latest fashions and trends. Now, whenever you're discussing the latest fashion and trends, you need to know that you don't have to criticize things. Maybe because you should not be asking about the person's profession. Maybe with the person you're criticizing the trends or the fashion, maybe the person is from that industry. Maybe the person is a stylist. Maybe the person uh, is a kind of fashionista, and you might unknowingly offend that person in that way. So pick topics. You can always discuss fashion and trends, but not in a negative way. Always, whenever you are making a small talk with people, it has to be on a subtle note, it has to be on a positive note. Do not crib about things, do not take out negatives into limelight. Yes, if there are negatives, the other party would also be knowing them, provided that is of common interest. So there is absolutely no point in criticizing things, in uh, commenting negative about those things. It has to be always positive. And then you can always discuss about celebrities, but not too much. uh, Again, as I said, the celebrity that you like may not be liked by the other person, and the celebrity that you do not like, maybe the celebrity is somebody else's favorite. So the moment you pass on any remark from your side, or maybe stretch beyond a certain point, the person would start feeling bored. So these are the certain topics that will always be helpful to you to master the art of small talk. Now, there are certain ways that you should learn, the ways with using which you can get better at small talk. There are 9 ways that I've listed. First is to demonstrate interest in your conversation partner. This is extremely important. It is not just the words that you're speaking, but also the nonverbal aspect of it. You have to show a body language which tells the other person, that you are interested in what the other party has to say. Nod in between, smile in between, and do not stand or sit very far off, because proxemics also plays a vital role. So by all means, you need to demonstrate interest. You need to show to the other person that yes, you're interested in what the other party is saying. Ask questions that are open minded. We've discussed this during the lectures when we were discussing about communication, that it has to be hot, honest, open ended, and two-way. So ask open-ended questions. It would mean that you're allowing the other party to answer, not just in yes or no, but you are creating a scope and room for discussions. So ask open-ended questions. Allow your conversation partner to teach you in case you have touched upon something. Maybe you found that yes, having said that politics should not be discussed, but then maybe you found that the person has keen interest in a certain party, is a follower of that party or a politician. You also do the same. So in that case, in case the person knows more than you, has more knowledge about a certain topic on you, allow the person to teach you, allow the person to share that knowledge with you. Do not show any kind of non-verbal cues wherein the person feels that okay, maybe you are getting bored. So don't do that. Allow the person to teach you. And then read news, because only when you need read news, you will be able to gather topics to small talk on. Be honest in your conversation, that we've always discussed. While you are making any kind of a communication, you need to be honest. You don't have to be fake, because the moment you're fake, the other party will get to know that it is a fake reaction. You're pretending to be somebody else. You don't have to be pretentious. Be honest. Copy good conversationalists. This would mean that if at all you feel that okay, there is somebody who's good at making small talk, or maybe who's good at making conversations, so you can, it is allowed to copy a good conversationalist, because it is always good to imbibe good things in you. And if you're copying anybody who's a good orator, who's a good small talker, maybe who's a good company to be with, you can always copy that particular person. Boost your conversation partner's self-esteem is really important. Having said that, of course, we've discussed this in the non-verbal aspect of communication as well, that be an active listener. How can you be an active listener? You can nod, you can keep pitching in between that yes, you're going, you correct. So this will in a way boost the self-esteem of the person. While you're making a small talk, you may get to know, while the person is talking, with the body language that the person has, with the gesture and posture that the person has, what kind of a phase that the person is going in. So knowing that particular phase, if you feel that the person is going from a low phase of his life, then you can always start talking. Don't turn into a motivational speaker. No, that is not to be done. But start taking topics which fit into the conversation, which will motivate the person to do well, or maybe to at least stay strong during the hard times. And then ask what's keeping you busy these days. This is extremely important while you're making a small talk, because this allows the person to know that yes, you're really interested in making a small talk. You're really interested in knowing the person better. And of course, know that the other person feel weird. This is again something important. Understand the non-verbal cues that the person is trying to give. The person is frowning at the topic that you've taken. Maybe the person is withdrawing himself or herself from the place that he was standing, or maybe he's looking at the watch. So you need to know, you need to catch those non-verbal cues and understand that the person is not liking the way you're talking, or maybe at all the talk that you're doing. So these are certain ways. If you understand and analyze these things better, you'll be a master at small talk, which is important. Now, having discussed all those things, just one thing that uh, I would like to focus and emphasize on here is that it is not a waste of time. Small talk is not a waste of time, because whenever we are in a strictly talking of a professional environment, whenever we are in a professional environment and we do not talk to people in the office that we are in the jobs that we're doing, people feel that we are arrogant. People feel that we have a certain attitude, owing to which we are not ready to talk to anybody and everybody. So that may not go well with your well-being, with your being in good books, with your overall health in the organization, with your stature in the organization, because these are all the negative traits. If somebody feels, maybe you're shy at making a small talk, maybe you like to be quiet, but then you need to master this art, because even you can't really tell people that okay, you're shy at it, or maybe you don't like to talk much, because then of course the people will feel that maybe you have a superiority complex, or maybe you're very arrogant, and that is why maybe you're not involving yourself into small talk. So it is a good idea to involve yourself in small talk, especially when, of course, whenever it comes to the personal terms, you can avoid, because there the max the people will do is judge you. But then here, when in a professional environment, when the people start to judge you on a negative note, it could not, it definitely, I would say, it would not be a good thing to go with. So therefore, when in professional world, you need to master the art of small talks. Personally also, it is important, but then there, of course, because the only fear that you have is that the person will misjudge you. Here in the professional world, if the people start misjudging you, you will have to pay a lot. Therefore, it is a good idea to involve yourself in a small talk. With this, we come to the end of this topic of small talk. This is yet another picture where you can see how to strike a conversation, which you can call as a small talk, and what are the things that you should never be saying. Have a good day. Happy learning.